If you are a business owner, a business leader, if you're in leadership of any capacity, and you're guilty of these things, where you're overlooking foundational steps inside of the business, you're not going to crack the slab. You're going to crack your team. And when you crack your team, it's really, really hard to recover from it. Welcome to the Foundation Files, episode 2. So, one of the things that's common in every single foundation that I've ever seen that had an issue is something was rushed, overlooked, passed through as complete when it wasn't. And the reality is, no matter what happened, the moment that it was looked past, rushed over, not addressed, it was 10 times more expensive, 10 times longer to fix. And it just impacted the rest of the job almost beyond anybody's ability to recover from. And, you know, I can give you some construction background of this because, I mean, you're working with subcontractors, you're working with a bunch of different people, and sometimes, man, like they got to get done because they've got other things to do. And so I can remember specifically when we first started the company, there was an instance where we were building for a client. We had went out, had all the grade done, had all the forms put up, and the concrete company came in behind the plumber to pour the slab. And we had a weather alert of some inclement weather that was coming. And we weren't sure if it was going to be rain, snow, what it was going to be, but it was coming. And we, kind of said to the concrete company, hey, like, is this going to impact anything? Like, do you think we should delay the pour? Do you, whatever? And they're like, nah, it's going to be fine. So they went out there, they started the pour, they did what they needed to do, and, they rushed through and said, hey, we're done. It was a Friday afternoon, and they finished. And this was about, 2 hours away from where, Ross and I lived at the time. And so the job was done, and we were out there at the beginning of the day, and then, they finished up, and, hey, look, we'll circle back beginning next week, inspect everything, looks good, we'll get framers out here and get started on the job. Well, they went out, they poured it, and then here comes the inclement weather, and we had like freezing rain that turned into like a slushy snow, and it did it all weekend long. So needless to say, the next week, and I think it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday before we could get out there, just because the access road to get there was so bad. And when we got out there, what we realized is like it never cured. It had started to dry because, as soon as that weather blew out, it was perfect conditions for, the concrete to cure. And it don't take long for it to cure here in the Southeast. And so it had started, but there was just pockets of it that were just soup. The whole inside of the slab was just still soup. And, the frame impacts on the site, we had already told the framers, hey, y'all come on out. Like, as soon as we give you the green light, you can go. Well, they had got out there and they had started, trying to preset some stuff. And we just realized at that point in time, like, hey, this isn't going to work. Like this is not acceptable. And so we had to call the concrete company back out, and, they tried to tell us like, hey, you guys gave us the green light to pour, all these different things. And thankfully, Ross is the king of receipts. So we had all the text exchange and the emails and the, where we had said, hey, there's inclement weather coming. What do you think? And their guys like, nah, it's good to go. And they rushed it. And the truth to be told was it started the inclement weather while they were still there. And they just pushed on and tried to, broom it out, get done, and they left. And this was a big slab for a big home. It was more than just like a mono slab. There was a lot of pouring involved in this to where, we're talking $70,000 worth of concrete. At that point, we had to relay to them, hey, you're going to have to push this out and redo it. And it's one of those things that could have been avoided had we not rushed it. And, in construction, what did that do? Well, it did a couple of things. But the good news is like we didn't make the same mistake. Once we saw it, we didn't say, yeah, go ahead and frame on it. That was their perspective. They were like, well, just go ahead and do what you can do. Like, dude, give it a week. You'll never even be able to tell. It'll cure and it'll do all these things. And we were like, nah, man, not happening. And so it was almost a stalemate because they were trying to challenge the position on it. And, I think it took 2 weeks for them to go out there and actually demo what they had done wrong. And then it It was about another 2 weeks before everything could be redone, and then it was a matter of who was going to pay for the plumber that'd been out there, who's going to pay for the new grading, and like it was just a bunch of stuff happening. Well, simultaneous to that, we've got a client now who just lost 6 weeks on their project at the very beginning. And so how could that have been avoided? It could have been avoided by paying attention to the fact that I'm building a foundation for a home, and I need to mind my P's and Q's here. And had I just planned a little better, had we just listened a little better, had that subcontractor, heeded our warning and said, "Hey, like, let's postpone this," it could have all been avoided, right? So like you get out there, everything looks fine at first, and then it fails. And the thing about it is like it costs an astronomical amount of money for them to demo that, haul it away, regrade it, have all the new plumbing put in, re-pour it. And it all could have been avoided in the first place. The problem was they tried to rush it. The problem was that they tried to overlook the critical details, that is the foundation of a home. And I think this shows up in a multitude of places. It shows up in everybody's life at some point. Like that's one little story of how it shows up in the construction industry. And if you're a builder, you've been there, right? You've been there. You've been there when the foundation has an issue. When the foundation has an issue, you're hoping you discover it that first day after pour. You're hoping that it doesn't arise months later after constructions began, because the only way to fix a foundation is to go back down to the foundation. And that can be a very expensive, timely, costly situation. And so the foundation is the most valuable piece, which is exactly why we're doing the foundation files. And we're applying this across not only construction and business, but family, faith, legacy, leadership, everything. And so when I think about that story and I think about the foundations and how that ties into leadership and business parallels, it reminds me of a couple things, right? Like, what are some ways that you can cause a failure of the foundation from a leadership position? One is you hire too fast because you're overwhelmed, right? You get there, right? You're like, I need to hire somebody. I just don't really know how to define it. I don't know really what I'm looking for, but I need somebody because it's more than I can handle. And so you rush into the situation and you get somebody in there and they don't have a real clear definition of what's to be done, and you haven't defined what you need done. And then the next thing you know, you're still just as busy and you got this other person, and then it breeds chaos. And you can rush into something and overlook this little detail of, hey, did I create a position outline agreement? Does this position fit inside of the hierarchy of my accountability chart? Is there flow for this? Does this seat even exist? Have I defined the seat? Have I done the necessary steps as a leader to set someone up to have success in this seat? Have I defined what a blueprint would look like to train them? Have I defined what a blueprint would look like to roll them out to where they are learning how to do it, then they're doing it with me, and then now they're doing it for me? And I think a lot of times those steps get omitted and we rush into it, and then we have less than stellar performance, and it creates fractures and cracks and stresses in the foundation of the business. Another thing you could do from a leadership perspective is letting culture violations slide, right? Like, man, just this once, I'm going to let this go, right? Like, hey, this was absolutely an inappropriate way to respond to this, right? This doesn't align with us from a culture vision mindset. Like, but you know what, man? Like, this person's under duress. Like, I'm just going to look past it because if I understand the situation. The moment you let it slide, again, you're skipping a critical detail of the foundation of the organization, right? If you're in a leadership capacity, maybe you don't own the company, but you lead inside the company, and you send something through, right? You approve work without really reviewing it. That's another one of those things. You're skipping a step in the process, and you're allowing for the foundation to be overlooked, because if you would have took the time and really had the attention to detail and really did the job that was required, we wouldn't have let it slide. Avoiding hard conversations. This is a hard one. This is one of the core values in our company. Have hard conversations fast. And a lot of people, man, they avoid the hard conversation. Hard conversations are not fun, but hard conversations are massively profitable and massively rewarding, not only for you and the organization, but for the person you're having it with. Don't avoid them, because then they fester up and they bubble. And then what ends up happening is, in lieu of a hard conversation with the person you should have the conversation with, you have a bunch of soft, pointed conversations with people that are not even involved in that, and then it festers up, and it creates stress and cracks in the team, in the foundation. And you skip training because you're busy, right? Like, I don't have time to train this person. I'm just, good luck. I'm guilty of that one. I'm guilty of that. You get overwhelmed, and you just try to you skip foundational critical steps, and it just sets you up for a poor performance. And then, your growth can outpace your foundational strength. And that's a situation where, like, you're growing so rapidly, but you're also not hiring and recruiting and doing the things necessary to sustain that growth, or you're overselling your production capabilities. You're overselling your equipment's capabilities. You're overselling your team's capabilities, and nobody can win. And the thing about it is like, that doesn't crack the slab. It cracks your team. If you are a business owner, a business leader, if you're in leadership of any capacity, and you're guilty of these things where you're overlooking foundational steps inside of the business, you're not going to crack the slab. You're going to crack your team. And when you crack your team, it's really, really hard to recover from it. Similar to the slab situation. You got to go in then and remedy it. You got to demo what's been built. You got to replace it, and you got to start over, and you lose time, and you lose money, and you lose buy-in. And it's really, really hard to recover from those situations in business and leadership. And look, it happens to the best of us. And the best thing to do is, when you notice that you're doing it, or maybe you're in an environment right now where you are doing it and you're hearing this going, oh my gosh, this is me. Stop. Have a hard conversation with yourself first. Address it, and don't move one step forward until it's done. Because every little skirting under the rug, every little moment that you take and you just push it down the road, you're creating a bigger problem. You're creating something that's almost unavoidable at the time of correction and repair at that point in time. And it's going to derail the whole thing. And man, I'm telling you, the most important thing you can keep intact inside of your business, inside of your team that you're responsible for, inside of your job, is keep your culture and keep your core values and keep the alignment and keep your team intact. You don't want to crack your team, right? You don't want to do it. You don't want to crack. You don't want to see a cracked foundation. You don't want to see an uncured, unsettled, poorly prepared, poorly executed foundation in the building world, and you dang sure don't want to see that show up in your team, right? If I think about this, like, as it relates to like a personal and or a faith level, it could look very similar, right? Because maybe you're not running a team, but you're married, and you're kind of short conversations, right? You try and take the shortcut. The shortcut is inevitably going to fail you, and you can't take shortcuts. You can't take shortcuts in construction. You can't take shortcuts in business, and you dang sure can't take them at home. You can't take them in your personal life. You can't take them in your faith. If you try to shortcut it, right? Like, hey, I'm going to shortcut the conversation with my spouse or in my relationship, right? I'm not gonna address the things that they're trying to talk about. I'm just going to try to wheeze by those things and not address the things that are concerns, right? Like, hey, they express a valid concern, and then I retaliate with my own valid concern, but I never address the concern. It leads to the same result. You crack the foundation of that relationship. You crack the trust. When you crack the trust, it is almost unrecoverable. It's almost unrecoverable. Thank God for the grace that comes. Is like, at some point you gotta tighten up, and you gotta focus on the details, and you can't rush relationships. You can't rush past hard conversations in marriage. You can't do it, right? Delaying discipline. Maybe you're a father or a mother, and you got children, and you delay the discipline, right? Like, well, I'll let it slide. It is what it is. I'll have that. I'll deal with that tomorrow, right? I was a kid, and I remember those conversations and hearing that, like, I'll deal with that tomorrow, and I would breathe sweet sigh of relief because I know that tomorrow they're not going to deal with it at all. And then as a parent, I've also been guilty of it. It's 10 o'clock at night. You've been running your business all day. You just came in from out of town. You come in, your spouse is just they're bowled over because they've been doing a 2-person job for all week by themselves. And they start telling you things, and then you're simultaneously shortcutting two things. You're shortcutting the conversation with them because you're too tired to deal with it, right? And you take it from the perspective of, oh, they're why you got to whine to me, right? I'm guilty of this. This is who I was at one point in my life. And then you say, look, that's fine. I understand what you're saying. I'll deal with it tomorrow. And then you don't. And I'm telling you, if you delay the discipline, then you can expect that behavior to get worse. You can expect that, like, the lack of discipline in fostering a relationship between parent and child, it's going to crack. The foundation will split. And it's hard to recover. It's going to cost more. It's going to take more time. It's going to require a whole nother set of steps to remedy what's been done. And so you can't delay it, right? You could ignore your health, your rest, your spiritual discipline. You could ignore those things. You could be like, look, God knows I'm busy, man. We'll connect later, right? Like I'll make time to read. I'll read a double portion later in the week, right? Like I'll take time to pray later. I'll get on a diet later. Guilty, right? Been there, right? I'll go to the gym. I'll walk, but I can't do it today, man. I'm tired. I got too much going on. And what you do is you're shortcutting the foundations of your life. You're shortcutting the things that should mean the most to you, and you don't do it intentionally. You're not intentionally doing it. You're just pressed against the wall the same way the contractor was, who's trying to get this job done so they can move on to the next job, so they can get paid, so they can take care of their family, and they made an improper decision, and it cost them a lot of money, and it cost them a lot of time, and it cost them reputation, and it cost them a lot of issues by making that one stupid decision. And so you can't rush through it, man. You can rush decisions from emotion instead of conviction. I'm telling you right now, that'll wreck. It will turn your life upside down at home. Rush an emotional decision rather than having true conviction, right? A conviction is, I've thought about this. I've aligned it to my core beliefs. I've aligned it to who I am, and I am convicted that this is how I should respond to it, right? Like there's a layer of truth behind it, and sometimes when you're dealing with it, you don't look at it from the angle of truth and what you know to be true, right? In the moment, it's just hostile. I don't really want to deal with this, and so your wife says something to you and you explode, right? Your spouse says something to you and you just pop back, or you reach for the jugular and you hit them with the one thing will derail them for the rest of the night. So they'll leave you alone, right? Those emotional outbursts are not coming from a place of conviction, because if you really backed away from it, you know the truth. You know the truth. Like, no matter who it is, I'm very, very hard to get angry. It's very difficult to get me wound up. That has not always been true. It has not always been true at all. But as I grew and I started trying to make principle matters in this stuff, and I started understanding the difference in an emotional response and a convicted response, I learned a method to where I could take a moment that I felt myself wound up and about to explode with an emotional trigger, and I can walk away from it. And then I could tell myself, and I write it down. Now I can do it almost mentally, but I'd write it down. How did this make me feel? Why did I feel that way? What did I really want to say? And I'd say that mean stuff to a piece of paper that I could crumble up, throw in the fireplace, put it in the trash can. But I did not inject it into my kid. I didn't inject it into my wife. I didn't inject it into that person at work that I depend on, that I got a great relationship with. But at this one moment, I want nothing more than just mow them down. And then I would go back and say, hey, based on our experience, based on what I know to be true, is that real? Do they really hate me? Do they really think I'm awful? Do they really think that? Or maybe they're just having an emotional moment. Can I see the difference in emotion and conviction in my spouse? Can I see the difference in emotion and conviction in my children? Can I see the difference in emotion and conviction with my teammates? And if you can do that from that angle and you start telling yourself the truth, that's conviction. I'm convinced that my wife loves me. Even when she looks at me and says, you're doing a terrible job with this right now, right? The emotional side of me is, do you not know what I've been doing? Do you not know how tired I am? Do you not see all this? That's an emotional outburst. But I can take the conviction of, I know she loves me. She's just upset. And I can change the way I address it, right? I can change the way I show up to that thing. And I don't take a shortcut. The shortcut is, let me berate you back so I don't have to deal with this. And then I also have to go back and deal with the damage caused. I have to go back and deal with the fact that I did take the shortcut. I have to circle back, because guess what? The shortcut looked like a great way to the top, but all it was a side trail that led me right back down here to the bottom, because at some point I got to address this. That happens in business. It happens in construction. It happens at home. It happens in faith. It happens in every element of your life. And the thing is, the foundation is what you're setting. What is the floor? What is the floor? What are you building your life on top of? Where do you build that as a man? Where do you build that as a leader? Where do you build that as a spouse, a husband, a wife? Where do you build that? What are you building on? I hope that you would put attention to detail into the foundation, because that's going to be a big, big deal. And you can shortcut stealing long-term peace. Because I'm telling you, once you get a handle on it and you don't take the shortcuts, the peace that comes from not taking the shortcuts outweighs all of the work that it took to do it the right way to start. There's peace in that. Go back. If I was on that job and I had made the decision on Friday to delay that pour until the following week when the weather had blown over, I could have woke up. The peace that I could have got in. It might have been a little stress thinking about the other jobs that I might have to reschedule. But man, compare that to the lack of peace when I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, now I got to come out of pocket, lose money on this job, and recover all the things that I did because I did not do the right thing. The same is true in leadership. The peace that comes from knowing that you didn't nuke your team, you didn't put unnecessary stress, you didn't crack the team, right? You don't want to crack your slab, you don't want to crack your team, right? The peace that comes with waking up knowing, hey, I didn't crack the foundation of my relationship with my spouse or my child because I didn't have an emotional outburst of this. I spoke from a place of conviction, right? I didn't neglect this. I didn't take the shortcut. I addressed it head on. I didn't delay the discipline. I had the hard conversation, right? The peace that comes from that is unrecognizable to someone who's used to living in chaos. And you live in chaos if you take shortcuts with the foundations, no matter what part of your life it is. So I'll leave you with this. Here's some questions that if you're listening to this and you're like, man, that's speaking to me, right? That's the goal. But I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. Number one, where am I rushing something that needs more attention? And just throw that as a blanket across your entire life. Put it in your professional life, your leadership. Put it in your home life, your faith. Put it in the job you're doing, right? Maybe you're delivering a product or service. Where are you rushing something that needs more attention? Number two, where am I letting my feelings outrun my standards, right? Because again, if I'm working from a place of conviction, then I have a conviction of a standard that I want to uphold. And sometimes my feelings will trump that, right? Because I want to take the shortcut. That's the shortcut. I can avoid this if I just spill it out. Where am I letting feelings outrun the standards in my life? Number three, what shortcut am I taking right now that will become a crack later? And I want you to define the shortcut, which is the thing you're avoiding. And then I want you to define the crack, which is the consequence of taking that shortcut. And then I want you to be able to sit there and weigh those two options. Which one really requires more work? So where am I taking a shortcut right now that will become a crack later? And throw that across your whole life. Number four, where do I need to slow down and reinforce the foundation that I'm building this week? Where is that? Is it in the scope of work you're doing? Is it in the product you're delivering? Is it in the team that you're leading or managing or holding accountable? Is it with your kids? Is it with your spouse? Is it with your girlfriend, boyfriend? Is it with your family? Where is it? Where do I need to slow down and reinforce my foundations this week? I'm guilty of it. I got a lot of things going on in my own life right now. A lot of things. This has been the craziest year of my life. I'm rushing through everything, right? Barndo's growing. I got my hands in a million other things. My wife and I have this incredible property where we're running events and we got these venues, and it's been a dream of ours forever. For 20 years, we've dreamed about the opportunity to be here. You know, I lost my oldest son at the beginning of the year. We're expecting our 10th kid right now, and he's faced with some unprecedented things going on. He's got some heart complications, and you know, the end of the year, like our life is not going to look how we anticipated looking at the end of this year. Like we already know this. Like we're going to miss Christmas with our family potentially. Like there's a lot of things going on. We made the decision to homeschool 5 of our kids this year. I'm juggling all these things. I've got so many things that I'm trying to do, and I have the tendency to rush through them because, like, where do I put priority? You know, like this, my son, that was a curveball. I did not expect that to happen in March of this year. The newborn, who's also my newest son, I did not anticipate receiving news that, hey, he has a heart condition that could require massive, complex surgeries to save his life. I didn't anticipate that we would have to travel 3 hours away and deliver in a place. And I didn't expect that to be over Christmas. And I didn't expect the fact that, you know, we would be running all these and we would go through that loss, and my wife would be expecting a baby and she wouldn't be able to help as much at the farm. And I have a tendency to kind of rush through things. And so even my own self, as I'm telling you this, I woke up this morning and I said, I feel like I'm letting the foundation slip in areas of my life that I can't let the foundation slip in areas of my life. I'm neglecting myself, my own personal time. I'm neglecting quality time with my kids. I'm neglecting quality time. I see my kids more than ever. I literally work right across the street from them. I'm home all the time. I'm with them. I'm doing school with them. I'm spending more time, but I'm not spending as much quality time. My wife and I are more involved and do more together than we've ever done in history, but it's almost like we've lost the ability to have that quality time together where we're not solving a problem, we're just enjoying each other. Like managing teams, building new systems, you know, running new businesses that I'm having to learn. Like Barndo is great, but like you have to start. There's a starting point to everything you do, and so I am guilty of letting the foundations crack in areas and not holding myself accountable to certain areas of conviction that I've held in my own life. Because life is crazy, life is hard, life is fast, and it'll come at you from every single angle that you could possibly imagine. And the only person that can square it back up, true it back up, and hold the accountability necessary to build on top of a true foundation that you've set for yourself is you. And if you never defined a foundation, I suggest you start. If you've built one and you know that you're not holding it up and you're not putting in the due diligence and the necessary work to maintain it so that you can build on top of it long term, and you can go and accomplish the things that you're working for and the foundation hold, then you need to go back down and start doing some of the work. Take those questions, push them in your life. They came straight from me because I was sitting in the parking lot of this podcast studio this morning asking myself these same questions. Where do I need to slow down? Where have I been avoiding things? Where could cracks come from? What are the consequences if I allow that crack to happen? And where am I letting the foundation slip that I've set for myself? I love you guys, and thank you for tuning in to the Foundation Files.